You've spent 3 weeks thinking through the project, and somehow the project still doesn't exist. The notebook is full. The launch is not. You've been telling yourself you're in a season of reflection, that you're getting your mindset right before you build. And maybe part of that is true, but somewhere in there, a quieter thing is happening, and by the end of this, you'll be able to name it. Here's what that quiet thing sounds like. It sounds smart. It uses words like clarity, alignment, intentionality. It says you're still figuring out your why. It says now isn't the right time, the market's crowded, you need one more course first. Every sentence is reasonable. That's exactly the problem. The most convincing voice in your head is the one that sounds like wisdom. The lazy voice is easy to catch. The dangerous one shows up dressed for the part. Think about the last thing you genuinely wanted to make. The app, the channel, the training plan, the freelance thing. Notice how the resistance arrived as research, as planning, as I just want to do this properly. You were busy. Busy in a way that produced nothing you could point to. There's a name psychologists use for the gap between knowing and doing. And it's not glamorous. It's avoidance. The mind protects itself from the risk of trying and failing by staying in a place where failure is still impossible. And the safest place of all is the place right before you start. You can't fail at a thing you haven't shipped. So the brain falls in love with the runway and quietly forgets the plane is supposed to leave. The trick your mind plays is subtle, so watch closely. It converts a feeling into a task. The feeling is, I'm scared this won't be good enough. The task becomes, I should plan more. One is uncomfortable and honest. The other is comfortable and looks productive. Given the choice, almost everyone trades the honest feeling for the productive-looking task. You've done it. I've done it. The whole problem is that it works, temporarily. So how do you tell real preparation apart from avoidance-wearing preparation's clothes? Ask one question. Is this activity reducing uncertainty or just reducing discomfort? Reading 1. Focus tutorial because you're stuck on a specific bug reduces uncertainty. Watching your 9th video on productivity systems for creators reduces discomfort. The first moves the project. The second moves your mood. They feel identical from the inside. And that's the whole trap. Picture someone, call him Mark. He wanted to start a fitness coaching business. For 4 months, he built the perfect logo, compared 7 email platforms, and outlined a course nobody had asked for. He called it Setting the Foundation. Then a friend asked a brutal question. How many actual humans have you coached? The answer was 0. Mark had built everything except the one scary thing, putting his name in front of a stranger and risking a no. Now bring that back to you. What's your version of Mark's logo? What's the elaborate, defensible task you keep polishing so you can avoid the small, terrifying one? Because the small, terrifying one is almost always the real work. Posting the first video, charging the first client, showing the rough draft to someone whose opinion you actually fear. The thing you're avoiding usually has your name on it. Here's where it gets uncomfortable. And I'm going to stay on the uncomfortable side a little longer than you'd like. The vocabulary of growth has become the perfect hiding place. Self-improvement content hands you an endless, renewable supply of reasons to delay. Heal first. Find your purpose first. Optimize your morning first. Build the right habits first. Each one sounds responsible. Stacked together, they become a beautifully organized way to never begin. You can spend a decade becoming the person who, instead of doing the thing that person would do. And let me give the other side its due, because it deserves it. Sometimes you genuinely aren't ready. Sometimes rest is real, healing is real, and pushing harder is the wrong move. Burnout is a real thing, and not every pause is avoidance. But here's the tell that separates the two. Real rest restores your appetite for the work. Avoidance dressed as rest leaves you more anxious every day the thing stays undone. If thinking about your project brings relief when you delay it, that's rest. If it brings a low hum of dread that never quite goes away, you already know what that is. That dread is information. Most people try to silence it with more input. Another book, another framework, another podcast about discipline. But input was never the missing piece. You already know enough to take the next step on almost anything you care about. The bottleneck is the willingness to be bad at something in public briefly on the way to being good. And there's a deeper reason you keep choosing the input. Every time you learn instead of ship, you get to stay the same person. The protagonist of a story that hasn't been tested yet. As long as the project lives in your head, you're still the talented one who could absolutely do it if you decided to. The moment you ship, that story goes to a vote. Strangers, the algorithm, the silence of a post that gets 9 views. Avoidance isn't really protecting the project. It's protecting your image of yourself. And that image is expensive. It costs you the actual thing. Sit with how that plays out over a year. You open the laptop with real intention. You tweak the brand colors again. You reorganize the folder structure of a project with no files in it. You watch a breakdown of how someone 3 years ahead of you built their thing, and you feel a warm flush of momentum that fades by the time you close the tab. You did something. You moved nothing. Multiply that day by 300, and you get a person who is exhausted, well-read, and exactly where they started. The cruelty of avoidance is that it never feels like quitting. It feels like working. Compare that to the version of you who shipped something ugly in week 1. By month 2, that person has feedback you can't get from any course. Real reactions from real humans. The specific edges of what doesn't work yet. They're not smarter than you. They just stopped negotiating with the fear and let the work do the teaching. Same starting line, wildly different month, and the only variable was who was willing to be seen unfinished. So let's talk about what actually breaks the spell, because awareness alone won't. You act your way out of avoidance, in pieces small enough that fear can't get a grip. The move is to shrink the task until it's almost embarrassing. Forget build the business. Forget write the program. Send one message. Write one ugly paragraph, record 60 seconds, and refuse to re-record it. The point isn't the output. The point is breaking the spell that says starting is dangerous. There's a reason this works, and it's mechanical. Action generates evidence. Every time you do the scary small thing and survive, your mind quietly updates its map of what's safe. Avoidance does the opposite. Every day you wait, the task grows in your imagination until it's a monster that could never be beaten in an afternoon. You're afraid of the version of the work you've inflated in your head. The only way to deflate it is to touch the real thing. And the real thing is almost always smaller than the story. The first cold message takes 90 seconds to write. The first post takes one upload. The first client conversation is one slightly awkward chat. You've been treating these like cliff dives. They're curbs. You step off a curb and keep walking, and the thing you spent 3 weeks dreading is suddenly behind you, already done, already smaller in the rear view. Here's the part nobody wants to hear about. Building a life on your own terms. Nobody's coming to give you a deadline. That's the freedom you wanted, and it's also the thing that quietly eats the people who chase it. When you answer to no manager, no syllabus, no external clock, the only thing standing between you and a decade of almost starting is your own honesty about what you're really doing when you say you're processing. The freedom is real. So is the weight of being the only one who can call your own bluff. So call it next time you reach for one more piece of research, one more round of planning, one more I'll start when I feel ready. Pause and ask the uncertainty versus discomfort question. Be honest about the answer. If it's discomfort you're managing, close the tab. Do the embarrassingly small version of the real thing today, before the clever voice talks you out of it again. You don't need more clarity. Clarity is the reward you get after you start, the thing that arrives once your hands are moving. The people building the lives you envy weren't smarter and weren't more ready. They were just willing to be visibly mid for a while. They started ugly in public before the conditions were perfect, because the conditions are never perfect, and they figured that out earlier than you did. So here's the only assignment that matters. Find the one task you've been dressing up in respectable language, the one you keep preparing for. Strip the costume off it. Underneath, it's small and it's scary, and it has your name on it. Go do that one. Skip the planning of it. Skip the research around it. The thing itself in its ugly first form, while your hands are still a little unsure. Your notebook will forgive you for closing it. Your future self won't forgive another empty season. The runway was never the journey. The runway was just the place you got comfortable enough to stop pretending you were going anywhere. Step off it. The takeoff is the only part that was ever real.